OJ.
Hey, Paul. How are you?
Hey, man. Hey, I'm doing all right, man. How you doing?
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I know. Seriously. Well, it's not like we don't talk all the time, but it's nice to see you face to face,
Man. Absolutely. And hello to all of our viewers out there.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to give a quick welcome to everybody that's tuning in, whether they're watching it on YouTube or any of our social media platforms. Welcome. I'm Paul. That's OJ. We're the co-founders of SecondTime, your leading resource in luxury pre-owned watches. And, since this whole quarantine happened, I have to say that the watch industry exploded with news. And you and I haven't really had a chance to sit down, have some coffee, and chat about it like we normally do. So I figured the next best thing is a Zoom meeting. What do you think, man?
I think that sounds great, man.
Cool.
I think that sounds great.
Cool. So you down to have a quick chat with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, the first
I'll let you lead the discussion.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. So the first thing that popped into my mind was essentially how the entire Swiss watch industry, like a lot of industries in manufacturing, are just closed.
Yeah.
And
an unprecedented time,
Exactly. An unprecedented time to sort of, I guess, quietly realign supply and demand. But I mean, you're the master of watching the markets work. So I figured you could maybe give me some insight onto what you think that actually means.
Well, I think there's a couple of schools of thought here. It's not a mystery that there was essentially an oversupply of watches prior to the cessation, we'll call it. So the question is, does that oversupply of watches get consumed and absorbed over the next, over the previous 2 months, the remaining, who knows, 6 months or a year that we're in this? Or, does that inventory still sort of languish? And then we got an even bigger problem when the stores start shipping product again. So it's an interesting time, and certainly it's an unprecedented time. And there's a couple of different schools of thought. The other school of thought is, we're going to have all kinds of new, fresh inventory hitting the streets, and everything's going to be really cheap. So, it's like, is there a shortage right now going on? I think in certain things there seems to be a bit of a shortage, let's say. But it's interesting because I would have thought secondary prices of watches would have been hit more than what we have seen over the past, say, 45 days.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. And I think that it's a combination of factors. Speaking specifically about, what I know about the primary market, I can say that with the factories being closed, every retailer is essentially closed. Yeah. And we're not really set up to do an aggressive amount of online business. I mean, those that were set up to do it are going to weather the storm just fine. But you think to yourself that there is inventory in vaults in stores all across America that's just kind of languishing. And I think the main reason why that's happening is because no one knows when this is going to end. It's sort of everybody just hang out, but we don't quite know when it's going to be over. It's sort of the joke I said to Holly, my wife, is it's sort of like being quarantined the day before a hurricane.
Sure.
Something is coming. You don't know when, and it's sort of on its way. But once that event happens, you're going to feel much better.
Sure. Well, here's my question for you. Coming from the primary side, was there a surplus of inventory leaving the factory, say from January 1st to March 1st, for example? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my main concern would be the timing. If you look at the sort of mid-February to mid-March, really crush of cases over and across Europe, you think to yourself, well, that's the closing months of a financial year for certain publicly traded companies. There's definitely a lot of pressure to get some sales up before the end of the year. Well, I would say that the mad dash tends to happen in January, and that mad dash that happens is usually because you're replenishing people from Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, hey, you know what? I sold 50 Omega Seamasters. They might start to reload you at that point.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
But what I would say is you also have to look at February and March is right about the time where new product is going to be dropping. And so there's usually a nice little pause right there in February and March. But again, my concern was that no matter how much inventory they shipped or didn't ship, it's currently dead stock in the literal sense. It can't move because the stores aren't open to sell it.
And so do you think a company like Tourneau, for example, you think their online sales are going up from what it normally is? Or do you think,
I would think that if Tourneau has a strong online channel, the strength of the channel is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to weaken at any point. What I would be more concerned for is the smaller independent retailers that rely on foot traffic and word of mouth and rely on their business basically being community based, which is what a lot of brands really want. They want to see you selling to your community and selling to people that you know and things like that. But when your community is not able to leave the house, how do you run a community business?
And it should be noted that most of these dealers have caveats that prevent them from selling the inventory or advertising the inventory on the internet unless they have some kind of superseding document or something like that, right?
Well, that's another excellent point. I mean, not every brand has embraced the internet in the same way. Not every group has embraced online sales the same way.
Sure.
And so what you end up with is you can end up with a group like Swatch. I'm using them as an example. I have no internal workings of Swatch. That's the reason why I picked them, because I've never worked for the Swatch group. But when you look at a group like Swatch has 15 brands, I think, and they can each have a different policy for online sales. Mm-hmm. So the Omega's online policy isn't the Blancpain policy, which isn't the Brigade policy, which isn't the Tissot policy. And so there's no real consistent way for groups to let their brands sell online. And right now it's sort of, you don't want to make a decision like that. Basically, you don't want to try and solve why the building is burned down while it's on fire. So the question is, what are brands going to be doing to let these retailers that have been partners for the brands for years, how are they going to let them sort of grow their business in a time where growth would be amazing, stability would be growth, and contraction would be stability?
Does this cessation, help the manufacturers in terms of helping to move out some of that inventory that's been languishing in the secondary market? I guess that's a question we'll know, the answer to, over the next 6 months, really.
Well, OJ, you said it you've hit it right on the head that there's going to be a problem. If they produced 1 week longer than the stores were open, there's excess inventory. And that's just the truth. I mean, if they were producing at 100% supply and demand curve, there'd still be a problem if they produced 1 week too many.
Oh, sure.
But when you think about that, I think the bigger problem that everyone's facing is that no one knows what to do.
Yeah.
And there's a massive paralysis
and I think that's a good point, is like some of these companies are like a deer caught in headlights. And then, you couple that with the destruction, we'll say, of Baselworld. I'd like to talk about that, because that I think is very exemplary of the kind of chaos and potentially, I think, some of the carnage that some of these brands are going to be faced with.
Well, I mean, let's go there, OJ. You brought it up. Baselworld is an excellent topic. Baselworld 2020 is gone. It does not exist on the calendar. It's been rescheduled to January of 2021. So there will be no Baselworld this year. Basel novelties from the top brands, Rolex and Patek, have been delayed until further notice.
Sure.
So there is a very, very small chance that if everything goes back to normal, we might see what Rolex and Patek had for Basel around Christmas time, which would be phenomenally interesting to me.
Sure.
But I mean, the bigger news is in the last month, who's left to exhibit at Basel? It starts when you go through the doors. It's LVMH. LVMH is no longer exhibited.
I think it's fair to say that Hall 1 represents about 70% of the production of all the watches made in the world, between historically the brands that occupied that floor.
I think it's safe to say that Hall 1 represents the best that Basel had to offer.
Yeah.
So let's just leave it
for
like
the 1 year that I went there. For the 1 year that I went there, the Hall 1, because that's like the mothership. Exactly.
So let's go through it. Okay. Well, when you lay out the brands that were there, it was Tag Heuer, Zenith, Bulgari, and Hublot were on the first floor of Hall 1.
Yeah. So those are their flagships.
Those are the brands. And then if you move past, when you move past LVMH, which is Tag Heuer, Zenith, Bulgari, and Hublot, you were reached with Patek and Rolex, who are no longer exhibiting.
Right. Patek was the 5-story winding freaking little house thing.
the way I explained Patek's Baselworld booth is, imagine if the Apple Store were built for Swiss watches, and that's what you'd end up with.
Yeah, and I think that's a very, very good analogy.
So then Rolex and Patek are no longer there. Then after Rolex and Patek, there was Tudor and Chopard. And Tudor and Chopard are no longer exhibiting at Baselworld. Then after that, it was the Swatch Group.
What are their biggest brands?
Well, no, it was all
the
the
Omegas.
brands.
Yeah, but who are the biggest brands?
It was Breguet, Blancpain, Omega, Tissot, Longines, Jacques Drouot, Harry Winston, I think, moved down last year or the year before. But the idea is, and it stretched on to Calvin Klein watches and Certina.
Sure, well, and I'm only asking you to explain this so that people can understand. You could say LVMH, you could say Swatch, but you're not talking about one entity. You're talking about 14 entities.
Right.
Well, imagine when you pull those out of the building, what that looks like.
Right. And the joke that I have about it was, the first year I went to Baselworld, I swore the building stopped at Omega. That's how big the Omega booth was. And my job was behind the Omega booth. The Omega only marked the halfway point of the whole building. It was just so massive that you had to walk around Omega to get to the second half of the building. So they're all gone. They're all gone. And then you move to Breitling. Breitling with their gigantic scoop of fish tank that was like 20 feet in the air.
Suspended
and the whole
in the air,
thing. They're gone. They're out. Followed by Chanel. Chanel is gone. Chanel went, and then Bell & Ross. And so I assume that if Chanel is leaving, Bell & Ross is going to be leaving too.
So it just seems like everyone headed for the exits.
But the idea is, this is actually killing an over 100-year tradition of showcasing watches.
Not just a tradition, but technically it's a modern monopoly. You know, until SIH came along, that was the only game in town to show your watches, to release your new arrivals, and to get the word out, to be able to be flanked by all the press. You had the demise of a monopoly.
It's worth mentioning that it's not necessarily a monopoly. And if it was a monopoly at all, it was a monopoly of convenience. When you have every major publication in the world in the same building, it makes sense to try and show them everything. Whereas if you were to try and release these products on an independent schedule, you might get certain coverage and you might not. I mean, a great example would be the rise of a publication like Hodinkee. Hodinkee started as an online blog, blossomed into basically the online equivalent of a publication, moved into print publications, and now is one of the most respected voices in watches. And that evolution happens because you're able to cover as much product as you can at a fair like Baselworld. And that's one of the reasons why I understand why trade shows exist. But when
but if you ask anyone how much they paid for a booth in that main hall, they would have told you it was a monopoly, and it prevented any kind of upstart or smaller company that wanted to get traction. Those prices were a serious barrier to entry, preventing smaller companies from getting in that kind of exposure.
Well, I would argue that no matter what you do in a trade show, no matter what trade it is, no matter what it's going on, unless it's a trade show full of independent companies, you're going to have that problem. I mean, think about like SEMA or E3 or anything like that, where you have Samsung can roll out and spend $7 million, not bat an eyelash, but can other companies do that?
Sure. And again, my only point is to say that in the midst of Corona, you witnessed the demise of a long-standing tradition, of a long-standing enterprise.
I was going to say, OJ, is when you look at sort of the idea of what happened in a month, could you imagine the sort of philosophical standoff that everyone was in, and everyone was pointing a gun at the other person and said, if you don't do this, we're going to leave. If you leave, we're going to do this. And it took the biggest brands in the industry to leave to hopefully get Baselworld to figure out what they're doing. I mean, the sad part about it is it's just like anything else. It's just like any other foot traffic or eyes on target driven market. If you don't have the draw, then what benefit is it for the people who need that draw to flourish? The one consistent thing that I knew going into the year was if I made a phone call to a friend of mine who owned a retail store and they carried Rolex and or Patek, they were going to Basel.
Right. Sure.
That was it. It was everyone else said, no, you know what? I don't want to spend $10,000. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Everyone else kind of adopted the mentality that we have now, which is if you want my money, you can come and get it.
Sure.
But with Rolex, I mean, it's a very rare opportunity to spend time with the Swiss executives. With Patek, it's the only time of the year where you're going to see the product not wrapped in plastic and vacuum sealed into boxes. So it's really one of those things where I understand it from that point of view, but Rolex and Patek basically are going to create their own show in Geneva around watches and wonders. And that's going to be the hottest ticket in watches.
Yeah.
Trying to get into that show, not watches and wonders, trying to get into the show that Patek and Rolex are hosting.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You have although
how is that going to coexist with watches and wonders?
What could happen is watches and wonders could exist. They could run those shows at the same exact time. Let's say that, Rolex and Patek, I think it was Rolex, Patek, Tudor, Chopard, and Chanel were agreeing to all work together on this new show. They can host that show concurrently with Watches and Wonders. And then the most important retail partners in the world will be in one place at one time. Because stop and think about who would be exhibiting at one time. It would be Rolex, Patek, Cartier, IWC, Panerai, Montblanc, Lange, Jaeger. I mean, the list goes on and on because it's basically taking the Cartier-led powerhouse of Richemont plus the independent machines at Rolex and Patek to drive this show together. Sure.
And so your prediction is that this is going to coexist peacefully and sanctimonious, like harmoniously with watches. What's the name of the show that Patek is
Watches
doing?
and Wonders. Well, they haven't announced the show name yet, but it will exist. My prediction is whatever they decide to do, it will exist concurrently and peacefully with Watches and Wonders. Right. But truth be told, OJ, I'm not 100% sold on the idea of trade shows for watches anymore because there are some companies out there that are doing great stuff without actually worrying about the traditional trade show model. And the example I like to use is Breitling. Breitling is really conquering the new world as far as I'm concerned. When they decided to leave Baselworld, they hosted global, what did they call them? Global summits?
Exhibitions? Oh, summits.
No, they called them summits. And they were showing off new product to local retailers. And I mean, local in the broad sense. I mean, the last Breitling Summit in the US was in LA, but you have to understand they're going after it. They did an all digital summit this year. They're focusing hard on sustainability. Breitling is really going after the business where the business is going, not where the business has been. And that's a brand I think we should be really watching.
Yeah. And I was reading an article where they were talking about the release of the Rainbow. The Rainbow Super Ocean.
The Super Ocean Heritage
re-edition. Yeah.
That's another really great example of how
sold out, and they want to make a blue dial for the UK health workers, and apparently the rainbow is a sign of hope during the coronavirus, and it seems to be that they're sold out.
Well, I mean, that's another great example of Breitling doing something different because Breitling has already come out and said that's a capsule collection. We're not going to make them anymore.
That's right, the capsule. And
collection. I love the idea, and because Breitling's taking something that works in fashion, that works in every other industry. Hey, this is released for one season only. Buy it and move on, or don't. Mm-hmm. It just won't be a part of our talking points next year. And I think that's really fascinating. But do you have any brands on the radar like that, OJ?
Well, obviously as a fan of Panerai, my Corona watch, my PAM 382. So as a fan of Panerai, I think they've done a really interesting and a pretty good job of creating these online boutique only exclusives. I think that Panerai is a company that's fairly well poised to go electronic and direct to consumer, especially in this time, of uncertainty. They've got a building social media presence. They're creating original content, and they're really trying to create, individually tailored customer experiences that anybody, relatively speaking, can take advantage of. Buying the watch and you can go spend a week with Mike Horn or whatever that program is.
Sure.
But moreover, it's those, it's that green dial submersible online boutique only in 42 millimeter. It was the release of the PAM, 744, 644, the blue dial submersible, the first one ever that they only made, I think, 500 or 1,000 pieces of, and they sold it e-boutique only. I think that is it's a very interesting innovation, and going direct to consumer plays right in with this idea of trying to sort of reduce that distribution network to mostly either committed dealer partners where they have the store in the store or the boutique model.
Sure. Well, I mean, OJ, I gotta be honest with you, man, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to speculate how these guys are going to be moving forward, as well as sort of what's happened over the past 3 months. Because I think that's also a telltale sign, recognizing, did these dealers get just piled on with inventory? And now they're going to, they're sitting on it until who knows when or what's going to happen. I guess, again, only the future really will tell us what happened and what's going to happen.
No, I mean, OJ, I'm just saying, it's really cool that we're able to sort of record these fireside chats that we have all the time for posterity. And I mean, it took a worldwide quarantine for us to figure out how to record a talk with each other.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there slowly but surely.
I definitely think we should do it again.
Absolutely, that sounds great. I'm with you anytime you want.
Absolutely, buddy. Listen, in the meantime, to everybody that watched to the end, thank you so much for watching. You've just heard two very different opinions on the marketplace right now. We'd love to get your comments, your feedback. If you agree, if you disagree, listen, we'd love to argue with you. We'd love to converse with you. We'd love to be your primary distraction during this time of uncertainty and this time of stress and anxiety. So if there's anything that we can do for you, you can feel free to call us. You can feel free to hit us up on Facebook or on Instagram or on any of our social media channels. But, we'd love to share our passion for watches, love to share our experience, and love to talk about, predictions and what we see for the future. Absolutely. Hey, OJ, let's pick this up again soon, man. Let's make some predictions for the future, okay?
Sounds great. I love it.
All right. So to everybody else, stay safe, stay sane. OJ, that goes double for you, bud.
Thank you.
All right, man. You guys take care, everybody.